Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty and today's episode is a layout process video for you from the Counterfeit Kit challenge group, and their challenge is to celebrate friendships. So I have these photos of my daughters there and there and their friends, and these photos were taken on our summer vacation this year, and our families have been taking vacations together for years, and even we took extra safety precautions during COVID to still make our vacations happen. And so I wanted to capture these friendship photos. And this year in particular is special because the three older girls are college age and two of the three of them are heading away to school. And so things are shifting for everybody. So it's a special moment of friendship to capture this. So I did pull out my CKC kit. And as you see me here, I am sorting through my pattern papers, and that's usually where I start, so I can find the background paper that I want to use for this layout. And as I was going through these papers, I thought I had one design idea in mind, which was to kind of keep a block of these photos together. And here you can see I'm trying to figure out which color I want to use. But then everything shifted when I found this pattern paper. And it so happens that these circles have sentiments in them. Oh, pardon my kitty. He likes to scrapbook with me, but sometimes that's not so convenient for filming. So anyway, this pattern paper has these sentiments in the background, and several of them happen to say hello friend. And so that was perfect, and the placement of these sentiments were perfect. And so I shifted gears to create this layout with strips of paper behind each photo that I'm going to trim down to point to those sentiments. And so I picked out the rest of the pattern papers that I had considered for the background, and I'm going to use those as these strips. So because my photos are 3 inches tall, I'm going to cut my strips down just slightly smaller so that you can still see the edges of that background paper around these strips, because it is going to be a fairly full layout. And I didn't want to lose that background pattern entirely, but I do want to de-emphasize the irrelevant sentiments on there, which have to do with I don't know, maybe it was like Thanksgiving kind of themes back there or something along those lines. So these strips will help de-emphasize that, and then as I angle them to point to the sentiments I want, that will emphasize those sentiments. So I'm going to do that by marking these patterns here, and earlier you saw me shuffling the photos around because I was trying to find the right flow to the story of the photos and which photo worked best with it, which pattern paper. So that's what I did before, and here I'm shifting things just a little bit more because the way these strips were lining up with those sentiments in the background was not making me happy, because some of the sentiments, like down there at the bottom strip, or in between the last 2 strips, were more prominent than I wanted them to be. But that is a problem to deal with down the road. First, I'm going to go ahead and go about trimming my angles on these papers to emphasize the sentiments I do want. So I did mark on the pencil with a pencil where the middle point of the sentiment was, and then on about 3/4 of an inch maybe from each side of the paper I made marks on my trimmer, and then I just clipped it off with my scissors. And so each paper can now have its specially aligned angle to point to that hello friend sentiment. And then once I have all of those papers committed and glued down, I will just trim off the ends, and I will save those strips of pattern paper for another use, as we'll get to in a minute. Okay, this is where I've decided that how I'm going to go about de-emphasizing the inaccurate sentiments was to punch these circles out that will fit inside those little wreath elements, so that pattern is still there, but the words will be hidden, so that I will just leave the words showing that are relevant to this layout. And it turned out there was more words than I expected, because some of the words said celebrate, and there was even some that said happy birthday, and the girls did celebrate one of their birthdays on this trip. So that worked out quite nicely when I didn't even realize those were there when I chose this paper. So happy accidents. And so I am picking patterns of the extra pattern papers in punching circles from the extra pattern papers, and I'm just overriding those sentiments that don't make any sense, and trying to pull up pattern from the bottom up to the top and vice versa, so that I'm spreading out some of that color and pattern and texture across the layout. All right, once that's done, I wanted to give these arrows a little bit more emphasis, and how I've been doing that mostly these days, if you've been watching my channel, is by pen work, and I've been using a lot of pen work instead of layers of paper and such to add more dimension and an emphasis to items and elements. And you'll see me here in a moment. I will go ahead and finish outlining the entire strip because I decided that it just needed that extra touch. And then I will also go ahead and outline each of the photos so that all of those elements have a little bit more weight to them. And you can see here that I am offsetting these photos on the top and the bottom to the far left and right because those photos were taken when we first arrived at our destination, and then the last photo was taken soon before we left our destination. So those bookend my story, and the two photos in the middle were actually about the birthday celebration, so I did tuck those two elements closer together on the layout as much as I could anyway. And with all of that done, I am ready to turn to my title. So I have this sticker book in my kit this month, and this is a Simple Stories sticker book. These stickers are pretty thin, and I'm not entirely happy with them, but I am going to continue to use them up. And so I've got my title down now. It says hello, and then I have these ampersand elements in my kit this month, and I included that as part of my flow of my title there that says hello and goodbye, and that ampersand worked perfectly to the open space of the ampersand goes right around the hello friend on that lower sentiment, so that was perfect. So I am outlining my letters with my pen also, and this is where these thin letters are troubling because with the thicker photos and cardstock, my pen can just glide along the edges of those items, no problem. But with these thin stickers, I was having a lot of slippage and getting marks where I didn't want them to be. So that is a reason to have thicker, higher quality products sometimes. At any rate, I have moved on to figuring out how I want to embellish this layout. And at first I thought I was going to use a lot of these circular icons in icons that kind of made sense to my story. But as I pulled out elements from my kit, I decided I really liked the softness of these flowers. And I had handmade all of these flowers in a separate video, and I'll link you up below if you're interested in DIY embellishments. You can check out that video. It's full of things besides flowers as well, so I'll leave that to you. And then I tried a combo of the icons and the flowers, and I pulled everything off to kind of start from scratch to really think about what I wanted. So I did want to emphasize my title up there with that little homemade banner piece, and I'm going to frame that with these floral pieces that I made. So I commit to that. And as you noticed earlier, those two middle photos I did kind of bookend with journaling cards from my kit, and the one on the right there will be for my actual journaling, and the one on the left is just an additional sentiment that reads happy together, something along those lines. So I liked the balance of those journal cards being there. And then I use more florals to emphasize where my journaling is going to actually go, and the rest of my title down at the bottom. And then in my kit, I also have this whole box of little word phrases that I stamped and die cut. And they're intended for card sentiments, but I'm using them this month on my scrapbook layouts. And of course, there was the word friend repeated in several colors, so that worked perfectly. And then there was also the word hugs. So I've got one area that says friend hugs because these guys just love on each other so much that I needed to put that phrase on there. And hello friend is going up with my title, which emphasizes the repetition of the background paper, so that worked out perfectly as well. I'm throwing on a few sprinkles of enamel dots as a finishing touch of embellishment, and with the addition of just a few hearts from my kit as well, that does finish things off. So let's go ahead and take a few looks at the close-up of this layout. So here is the full layout, and there's a little bit more detail of my title where you can see my black pen went a little wild. There is the lower part of the title, and here is my journaling. So that is it for this time. I hope you got something useful out of this video. If you did, I would appreciate a thumbs up because that does help my channel. I will be back next week with more process videos for you, so I do hope you'll join me then. I'll see you next time.